Hi, fourth graders. This is Mr. Dinsmore again. I'm going to show you the partial quotients method of division. Earlier I've shown you, area method for division. I've shown you the circles method, the parts method, and some partial sums types methods for division. But I really like this method, the partial quotients method, because it really ties nicely into the traditional method. And it has a similar way in which you solve it. But I really feel it helps you understand the place value and the reasons why you're doing what you're doing when you use the traditional method. So let's get started. Obviously you can see that we have 6 goes into 893, or 893 divided by 6 as our problem, and it's written the same way as the traditional method. What I'd like you to do though is draw a line all the way down the side, because in this method I'm actually going to be putting my partial quotients out to the side, and then we're going to be subtracting numbers like in the traditional method from the original number, 893. So let's get started so I can show you the steps here. When you first start, you want to look at the place value of the numbers, and we're going to start with the larger place value like we do in a lot of the partial products or partial quotients methods. And so we're looking at the hundreds place here, and we're seeing if 6 can go into 800. Well, can 6 go into 800, or we could look at it as 6 goes into 8? Well, yes it can, but only one time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a 1 off to the side here. Now actually, if I think about it, it's really 800, and 6 goes into 800 100 times, so I could write 100 there, but I'll explain why here. So first of all, let's go back to 6 goes into 8 1 times. Well, 6 times 1 equals 6, so I'll put that underneath my 8. But if you notice here, I still have my 10s and my 1s to deal with, and that's why I'm putting the zeros here, and I get 600. And you can see that that's also why I'll put my zeros on my 100, because 6 times 100 is going to give me 600. I hope that kind of clarifies what's happening here. Now the next step in this is I'm going to subtract the 600 from my 893. And once I do that, you can see that I'm going to have 293 as the number that I still have left from that total. Well, what do I do now? Well, now I once again look at whatever place value is available here, starting from the hundreds, the tens, and the ones. Well, I still have 2 hundreds left here. So I'm going to look at that, but obviously you can see I can't take 6 and divide it into 2, or so I'm having a problem here. So I need to look over at the next number, which I can see that, yes, 6 can go into 29, which is actually 290 here. So, well, let's think of our math fact here. What math fact would get me to the closest to 29? Well, I know that 6 times 4 is 24, and that gets me pretty close. I'm just can't go quite to the 6 times 5, which would be 30. So I'm going to write 4 out to the side here. And you can see, since I'm at my tens place with the 9 there, I'm writing my 4 under the tens place of below that 100. And now I can go 6 times 4 is going to give me 24, and I write that under my 29. And you can see I still have my ones place to deal with, so I need to put a 0 in the ones place here and here. And that goes with what I was talking about earlier with the 100 and the 6 and getting the 600. So now I have 40 here out on the side, and I have 240 underneath. Well, what was the next step? That's to subtract the two numbers. And once I do that, you can see I'm now down to 53. You can clearly see I'm taking the numbers that I'm multiplying by, and I'm putting them on the side, and I'm taking the answer to that number and subtracting it from the original number that's being divided by 6. I have 53 left. Well, once again, I'm looking at the one, in this case, the tens place, and it's not going to work with 6 going into 5, so I'm going to have to look at my ones also and look at the number 53. Well, what fact would get me the closest to 53? Well, 6 times 8 gets me 48. So let's put 8 on this side. You can see since I have to look at the 3, which is in the ones place, I'm going to write it in the ones place on my numbers on the side. And I now go 6 times 8, and I can write that answer underneath. It's 48. And then I go ahead and subtract these numbers, and I get 5 as the remainder. So I'm going to write remainder 5. And if I look at my numbers on the side here, well, I know what my remainder is, but what is my answer? My answer is actually on the side here. All I have to do is add these numbers up, and I get my answer, which is 148. So the answer is 148, remainder 5. Well, how do I know this is right? I like to check work, so let's go ahead and check it by writing 148 over on the side here. And now we're going to multiply it by, well, we'll multiply it by 6 because that's what the number was originally divided by. And so we're going to put 6 over here, and 6 times 8 is 48. I'll carry my 4, and then I'm going to go 6 times 4, 24 again. Now I add the 4, I have 8. And here's the funny thing, I go 6 times 1 and add that 2, and I actually have 888. But I'm not done, because you can see that I originally started with 893 being divided by 6, not 888. So now I have to add on my remainder 5 to make sure that it's going to add up to 893. And if I do add that on there, you can clearly see it's going to be 893. So I did divide it correctly. I've checked my work. Well, one thing I like my students to do is to write, instead of a remainder 5, to write the remainder as a fraction. So let's go back to what our answer is, which is, you can see, of course, before we do that, that obviously I have it right because 893 matches 893. But that is not my answer. My answer is 148 with the remainder 5. But how can I write that? Well, I can write the 5, and since we were dividing by 6, the answer is going to be 148 and 5/6. Let's try another one here before I end this video. So let's go, this one's pretty quick. Let's do 8 divided into 265, or 265 divided by 8. And you can see I drew the line down again just like before. This time, though, you can see I cannot divide into the hundreds, so I have to go right to the tens place and divide 8 into 26. Well, how many times does it go in? It goes in 3 times, so I write my 3 out to the side just like before. And now, of course, I go 3 times 8 is 24. I subtract those numbers, and you can see I have 240. Subtract them from 265, and my answer is 5. Now you saw me put the 0 in again, and the reason for that was obviously, like I explained earlier, and the other problem was I can't leave no 0 and hold it in that place value of 1, so I put a 0 in the ones place under my 5 and also next to my 3. So you can see I have my 30 here, and that 30 times 8 would give me 240, and of course I have 5, but I'm not done. I still need to subtract the 4 from the 6, and that gets me 25. Well, 25 is what's left, but now that's all I have left to work with here. This is actually going to go pretty quick. 8 goes into 25 how many times? Well, we already know this from before. It's going to go in 3 times, and once again I'm looking at my 25 because obviously 8 can't go into 2, and it can't go into, I have 2 by itself, so I need to add the 5 onto that, which is 25, so I need my 10s and my 1s here to help me out. So I'm looking at 25 instead of 2. Well, 8 times 3, like I said, so I'm writing my 3 out here, and you notice since I looked at my 1s place, which was that 5, I put my 3 under the 1s place. Now I can go 8 times 3 and get 24, and I subtract those 2 numbers, and I have, of course, a remainder of 1. Now, to find out what my answer is, I simply add these 2 numbers on the side, and you can see I have 33. So my answer is going to be 33, remainder 1. Well, let's check it again. And you can see that I'm just going to check it. All I need is to write 33, and now multiply it by the 8. That we were dividing by originally, and 8 times 3 is 24, carry the 2, 8 times 3 is 24, we'll add that 2 on, we get 26, And 264, well, that's not our answer, but we do have a remainder of 1. So if we add that on, you can clearly see we have 265 for our answer. It compares nicely to what we started with, which was 265, the number we're dividing by. Once again, this is just checking our work. It's not the answer itself. The answer is really 33. Remainder 1, well, how will we display that remainder? Well, 1, and of course we're dividing by 8 and 1/8. I went through that pretty quick, but I hope that's helpful. Once again, keep practicing, and I hope this sets you up and helps you understand the traditional method. Thanks. Enjoy.